Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend, Jim Stam. How you doing, brother?
All right, man. It's like we finally have some actual on-field stuff to talk about. It's only spring training. It's not necessarily, the be-all, end-all, but it gives us some new stuff and interesting stuff to talk about.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about some of the individual performances that have stood out, some of what we've heard, sights and sounds type stuff. First thing I wanted to start talking. Oh, and I'll get to the puller plunge and I'll show the video. I promise. Segment 2, we'll get right to it. I figure you owe me 8 to 10 minutes of watching before you get to see that today.
Yeah. It's just a tease to get people to stick around.
Yeah. So before we start talking about individual players, something I thought was really kind of interesting, Jim, was we got to see a little bit of this new ABS challenge system. Now, if you went to any minor league games last year, you probably already saw it and became familiar with it. I got to say, I didn't see people take advantage of it in the minors. So maybe they've got like real tight clamps on when that can be used or whatnot in the minors, because I didn't see it applied. So it was kind of cool seeing it in the majors. I thought it was pretty smooth. I don't think there needs to be some big dramatic delay in the game and a display up on the board and all that. What did you think of what you saw?
Well, it's interesting. I think just based on the larger reaction to it was that fans really, I think, seem to like it, and I actually think they like seeing that on the scoreboard, right? Or on, just to see what the actual pitch was and if it made it or not. I think the reaction to it has been really positive. Players are back and forth about it. I'm kind of back and forth about it. And I guess we should just go over the basics of it, which is this is just something they're testing. It's not going to be this year. You get 2 challenges. If you are wrong, only the you lose a challenge. If you're right, I believe you keep them. Only the pitcher, the catcher, or the batter can challenge the call. So that brings up some of the different dynamics too, Gary. What's your thoughts about it as we go forward? Because I got to tell you, I think we're going to see it as soon as 2026. I think
you're going to definitely see it in 2026, because with the new CBA coming up in 2027, it's the last year where the league can unilaterally put a law in. So I mean, I think they'll make the change right then and there. I don't think it'll ever go beyond this ABS though. I think this is going to be enough of a taste of that mechanical option. Some of the people that I've heard talking about it, like Adam Wainwright, was talking about like the full-on robo-ump concept mostly, where he was thinking like it might give pitchers a target again. They haven't had a target in a long time. I think it also gives some hitters with that really killer eye an advantage that they're just going to kill you with.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple guys that come to mind that their eyes are so good. Well, even someone like Kutch could probably, take advantage of it. But overall, it's like I think pitchers want to use it to their advantage. I think like because they know how certain umps call games, and so they study that, and then they want to pitch to that strike zone, right, and try to take advantage of it. Where I think like hitters, for the most part, just want the call to be correct. And not get screwed out of a pivotal at bat in a game where it really, really matters.
Over under on how many times Brian Reynolds would be out of his challenges by the third inning.
That's part of the strategy though too, right?
Right,
Is like
right.
how do you know when to use them? Also too, like, okay, we know when a batter is going to use it, he has to say it. But like pitchers and catchers, like, do some pitchers only want to be the one to challenge it? Would they prefer the catchers to? I would assume they would, but you only have a second or two to challenge it. So like there's all these like weird little wrinkles with it that I'm curious to see how that stuff shakes out.
I know, like Eric here says, he's all for the umps getting cocky when their call is upheld. Was a good clip of one already. And I think you're going to see a little bit of that too, like where the pitcher's kind of like doing that whole, like, yeah, see, or like the batter's like, I told you, I told you you've been calling them all outside today.
Yeah,
I
how are
think
they
it's
going to
going to set
react
up
to that?
some things like that. That's why I was hoping, like, when they were talking about the rule being like for a batter, for instance, you just touch your cap,
Mm-hmm.
to tell them that you want to, which is going to be weird because, like, man, like a guy like Bobby Bonilla would call one on every play accidentally, just messing with
Right,
his
right.
helmet, right? But, anyways, if that's the signal, that's the signal. But let's say, like, they're doing that. That tells me you want there to be a level of discretion there. So, why put it up on the board and like have it be this big display? Just have the umpire get the signal in his ear, whether it was in or out or whatever, and call it a day.
Well, I wonder if right now, at least, they're doing it to show people what it's doing, right? Like you want to see the product instead of just some weird room it's going to
Yeah.
like being as transparent as possible
I
about
yeah, I
what
can
it
I
looks
can
like.
dig that, man. I can dig that. I guess like for me, I'm not looking to add more moments like that to a game. You know, I think like that's gonna take a little bit of the drama away from that, like that big bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, 3-2 count. If a guy has any challenges left, he's going to use it right then and there, right? If
Yeah.
it's anywhere close. And
Yeah.
it just takes away that extra second you have before you can actually celebrate something or
Right. Yeah. There's, like I said, there's a lot of wrinkles to it. It's like, you can what if this to death. What if you're going against a good pitcher that can go 7 or 8 and not give you many opportunities? Well, what if you have an opportunity with 2 runners on in the second inning?
yeah,
Like, do you think, well, that might be our best chance to get to him? So I'm gonna, if there's a questionable call, would you use it there,
right.
or do you want to bank them for later? I don't know, man. Like it, it puts a lot of onus just on that actual player in the moment to not only be thinking about himself, but like situationally, how does this affect the rest of the game?
What's going to be curious too is when they actually implement it in the league, which method do they go with for like developing the strike zone? Is it a three-dimensional strike zone that like has depth to it? Because if it is, you're going to have pitchers start bending it like Beckham into the back half of that strike zone.
You'll see the 12-6 curveball make a big
Oh yeah, right,
big comeback.
right.
Curveballs in general. It's kind of a pitch that's gotten poo-pooed of late. Yeah, like and we've only scratched the literal surface of all the stuff with the unintended consequences of things. So
It's still fun to watch in spring. It's cool to see it happen, see what it's like a little bit
yeah,
more, and see how players of a different level handle the responsibility of being able to challenge.
right.
Like I think certain hothead pitchers would probably exhaust their challenges rather quickly in insignificant counts, right?
Yeah, and apparently, like Max Scherzer must have gotten fooled a couple times. He challenged 2 calls, but if your catcher's good at framing, I mean, he fooled Scherzer. So there's a lot to it. I'm leaning towards I like it because I don't want to see a game late get ruined by a terrible, terrible call. So that's what I keep going back to.
All right, let's take a quick break. Let's come back. Let's talk a little plunge. Let's talk a little players.
Let's do it.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Gary and Jim with you. I'm all warmed up now, Jim. after that polar plunge, it was a week ago. Good stuff, a lot of fun. Because of a lot of you, I raised. I finished at $810. My team, I think there's 22 of us. We finished at 15,054. And the 2025 Pittsburgh Polar Plunge in totality took in $1,135,872 for Special Olympics. And it's pretty cool. They send you out a little letter telling you like flights that it actually pays for and, you know, places they can actually get to completely free to compete. So neat stuff.
And all you had to do is freeze your nads off for a morning and get sick from it probably. But
right.
Yeah.
I'll probably play this a couple times as we talk, but here's the first showing of my stupid leap. And then you can ask me questions about how cold I was while my testicles remember and actually react to it here on live YouTube. Good God.
There is
cold.
There is a lot of steam coming off that pool right there. It was cold that morning too, dude.
Yeah, man. It was freezing cold. And like the worst part really for me was this was my first time. So this was like your first time doing anything. There's things that other people know because they've been around and doing it. They try to tell you everything to think of and do, and they leave out something that you really wish you had known, like there's like a long line you have to wait in just to get to the jump. So I'm thinking the whole time, because you have to strip down to get into that line and everything, and it's cold out. So I'm walking to this line and I realize I'm going to be in this line for like 45 minutes standing here like this. I mean, you're freezing cold. You don't got anything with you. My wife's like holding the dry bag and everything, like my extra towel, and 45 minutes of waiting in line. And then you get rushed up to this stage, like almost like they just grab your arms and start tugging you up, and they throw you in front of it and jump. Like no pomp or circumstance to it.
Yeah, dude. The only thing that goes through my mind is, because I've never done that and I probably never will, is just how painful the cold must be whenever it envelops your body. I can only imagine. And
weird, man.
You should have. What would have been awesome is to wear a shirt that said "I was in the pool." If people don't get that, I'm sorry, but it would have been great.
Oh man, but it was a good time, good cause, and thank you guys for donating to it. And I'll play it again here before the end of the show just for fun. Maybe it'll be our new gag thing. Yeah, maybe it'll be our new gag thing for when somebody has a really terrible game. We'll play that.
We'll make it a gift.
Yeah. So the Pirates have been doing some different things. The first thing I wanted to talk about, Jim, because it kind of caught me by surprise, was Carmen Baczynski being stretched out to start. It's not a move I saw coming. I mean, they kind of made the switcheroo with him. I was wondering what your initial thoughts were of that, and then we'll discuss it a little bit. I have a few thoughts, but
yeah, it caught me by surprise. Looking into it a little bit, it sounds like he's been very straightforward with them that he wants to try to be a starter.
Mm-hmm.
that's where he envisions himself. My first thought was, well, okay, that's fine. And but he's also been pretty decent, to dare I say good at times out of the bullpen, which is something that this team can still use. There is no real downside to it, Gary. I don't think. You stretch him out, he can always go back. I think it'd be harder to go the other way around. It's either you do it now, at the preseason, or it's just something you would have to push off again. So I
Based
don't
on
know.
what you've seen from him already, like in the bullpen,
Mhm.
we're already intrigued, right? We already think like there's something there.
Sure.
So let's say that they stretch him out to start, and that's what he spends this year doing. He's still relatively young, you know. Let's say that he spends that this year doing that in AAA, and then he becomes a potential starting option. He's not going to crack this team, I don't think. But doesn't he give them another young, hard throwing pitcher that they could deal? I mean, does he not turn into Luis Ortiz like real quick if he looks like he's a guy that can handle a few starts too?
Yeah, it's obviously something that if he transitions well to it, then certainly it's another arm you have stockpiled. Now, I would suggest trading some of that stockpile, but he is somebody that is interesting enough to take a look at. And like I said, if it doesn't ever develop, he can go back to a bullpen role pretty easily, I think.
Right.
I don't think there's a ton of downside. It surprised me, but I give him credit for speaking up, at least, like saying, "Hey, this is something I want to do. I want to try it."
I mean, the other thing that I kind of think maybe makes sense here is, I mean, you could need him to be a long man out of the bullpen. It would be good if he was stretched out to be able to handle 3-4 innings if you had like a bad outing from somebody, or somebody got touched up, or there's a rain delay, and you got to do
Mhm.
something. It wouldn't be bad to have a guy like that at some point, and you kind of have to develop that, right? And here's a guy that's already got the bullpen aspect of it now down, so you don't really have to like put a starter in that role and hope it works out. He knows what he's doing there.
Right.
Kind of like it from that aspect. I don't know. The other part of it is his injury history.
That was the first thing I thought of too, which is, boy, um, maybe you want to guard against that, but
Or maybe he doesn't want to have to throw as hard as he has to throw to be an effective reliever. Thinks as a starter, maybe he would be able to stay healthy longer.
yeah, it's just funny because when you start thinking about this, is the path to a starting spot on this team is very narrow. So for him to want to do this, I think shows how much he believes in that for himself. But I also wonder, like, even if he pitched well, they're not going to just put him in the starting rotation. I just can't see that.
I would
So
agree with that, but I don't think that's. I think this is more of a long-term project type thing.
right.
But you're basically taking him out of the early mix of the bullpen by doing this.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that's interesting. Like, as far as what would you do with how would you handle that when it comes to the roster?
I mean, I'm looking at some guys that aren't on the roster that are interesting to me right now, like Tanner Rainey has really looked great early on. So that's a dude that I think could honestly be worthy of putting on the 40 man. I don't know how you make space for it though. Like if you're basically punting on Majinski, and he's just going to be in the minors working on his craft. I mean, that's an arm that you might need up here. So, like, I'm sure they're not slamming the door on using him in the bullpen. He's got experience again,
Right. And part of me wonders if some of this isn't too is like Bubba Chandler-esque, where he wanted to try something, so they're going to say, okay, and, let him try it and then go, okay, that was fun, but we need you to do this. And a way to kind of say you're being open and player centric, but then in the back of your mind saying, that's all well and good. He'll get this out of his system. We can use him the way we want to.
So we didn't get to see Paul Skeens, but we did get to see Jared Jones, and we've gotten to see Bubba.
Mm-hmm.
What have you thought of those two?
Yeah, both of them. It's a shame we didn't get to see Paul, but I think we know with Paul,
Yeah,
even if he's not using any new pitches, what that's going to look like. The interesting thing about both Jared Jones and Bubba Chandler is we already know, like, fastball's elite, right? The fastball is where they eat. But the curious thing is what you're hearing from both of them is, and I think this is something for everybody to remember as we watch baseball games, is no matter how good your fastball is, and it can be dominant, and they both have that. Chandler's, I think, I don't think it's a stretch to say right now his fastball is going to be elite.
I just saw it got ranked, like, I think top 7 in all of baseball right now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So, but
he's going to be hard to hold back for long is the point.
Yeah. But the thing is with both of them is no matter how elite your fastball is, you have to have stuff that works off of that fastball to keep hitters off of that fastball, even though it's really, really good, because some guys can sit fastball enough. And I think this happened to Jared last year, Gary,
Right.
which was, it's a really, really good pitch for him. And when it's up and it's rising, his four-seamer, but guys can get to it every once in a while. And if they can put it out of the yard, it's going to hurt you.
So it's pretty nice to see him build in some kind of a counterbalance to that pitch with the two-seamer.
Yeah.
I don't think it sinks as much as he'd like. It seems to be almost more of a screwball action.
Right.
The velocity change is nice and I think needed. I'd still love to see some kind of a changeup. I really would. I think it would really complete his arsenal, but you can't ask for too much out of a kid like that. He could be a very successful 3-pitch pitcher. I think a changeup would make him deadly. But I've liked what I've seen. I mean, or heard, I guess. I didn't really get to see it, but
right. I mean, that's the shame about some of these games not being on. I think too, like, if you look with Jared Jones, at least, when he's pumping that strike zone up high with that four-seamer, and then you get that other pitch, whether it's, it's like a two-seamer, it's something that has some drop to it, right?
Yeah,
Not
right.
a ton. But like what you're trying to do there, I think, is like that hitter can't just sit on high heat that's moving up, right? Like it may be that other fastball slash slider slash whatever it is that gives you that split second of like, maybe it's not that pitch.
Right.
So
it allows him to get away with 97, 98, what he had to have 101 to 100 with last year to pull off.
Right, because when you saw his velocity dip a little bit and he just only had that as his, like, his meat and potatoes pitch, some hitters are going to get to it eventually.
Right.
It's so critical for him. If he does that, if Jared Jones can develop anything outside of his already, his repertoire, which is limited, sky's the limit for him.
Right. So with the hitters, it's weird to be looking at individual numbers and like freaking out about it, and you got to think about the competition they're facing when they come in. But there are some guys that just right now they're making me think. They're making me look. The Pirates got a spot right now, and Matt Gorski looks awesome.
Yeah, today was the first day I started entertaining Gorski if he has a really good spring. And, he could flame out the rest of spring training and it's not going to, the conversation's going to be a moot point at that point. But you know what? If he hits really well, and yes, the K rate's a concern, the whiff rate's a concern, it's probably not going to get any better at the major league level. But he's versatile. He can play the outfield, might play a little first base. God knows they desperately need the power, Gary. Like,
it might be worth an early season shot. I mean, it's a use it or lose it year with him. And he can do everything that you've decided to leave holes for. First base in the outfield, right?
Right.
And to me, it's a worthy swing. If let's say Horwitz is only really out for 2-3 weeks. Well, start out with Gorski. If Gorski's hitting, well, maybe Horwitz has 5 weeks to recover.
Yeah.
And he can really get better. Maybe we really work on that chronic thing. I mean, it's so early to care about this, but Gorski does this on occasion. He had a really hot season, like when he was in Altoona a couple of years ago, and then he just turned into a pumpkin. So a hot spring is not going to be enough to convince anybody that Matt Gorski's the answer. But I do think like he's probably in a position to earn a shot, not unlike Bly Madris did, where you get called up for something that you expect to be short term. You're probably going to be roster fodder, but you're going to get your shot,
I will say this, like, do I expect him to be successful at the major league level? Probably not. I'm just saying if he does have a really good spring, he does have some pop in his bat. It wouldn't be the worst move I've ever seen them make. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But we'll see.
Eric's got a good one here. We got to talk about Harrington's slider. Did you see that chart that came out about his slider?
Yeah, to the point where I was wondering if there was something wrong.
I thought StatCast was broken, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, like, man, they've just got we could go on and on. I mean, there are other guys we could talk about too, but
we will. That's kind of the show tonight, man.
Yeah, but the pitching right now is so light years ahead of everything, and they've actually built.
Hunter Barco just sparkled the other day,
right? Yeah. And they've actually built it up enough to where it could even sustain some injuries.
I think so.
And
not certain injuries. You're not going to replace a guy like
Skeens
or Keller,
No.
But
let's go back to Chandler for just a second, Gary. Do you foresee any chance he does make the opening day roster?
No. Not without an injury. I think you would need an injury to one of them, and it would have to be long term. Because you're not going to call him up like to not keep him up. So I would think like if it was something like say Bailey Falter sprains his ankle and he's probably going to be back like late April, early May. I think you probably go with a Burrows or Ashcraft or somebody that's already on the 40-man,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even Majinski in that case. Caleb Ferguson, you may end up going with as your fifth starter for a month there. I think the hurdles he would have to jump. And to be honest, what did we say before spring started with Bubba? He'd have to be just like Jared Jones, right? Well, he's already got a blemish. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that he ain't good or he doesn't look incredible. But even he thinks he has a little bit of work to do.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like when you hear him talk is like, not that he's resigned to it, that he's not going to be on the opening day. He certainly still wants to try to make team.
Sure.
But it's not like he just sees no other path either.
Right.
So
I'm interested to watch him continue to compete. I think that he's the one that called out that he has some mental aspects to work on. And he himself said that in the post game. I haven't seen evidence of that when I've watched him pitch. I feel like he's very composed, but only he would know what's going on inside of himself when he's up there, you know? And
yeah, some guys do a better job of hiding that too.
yeah.
Right?
So, I mean, if he's saying things like that, he probably knows I do got a couple things that I want to work on still, and I can fine tune this and fine tune that. And I'm standing next to Paul Skeens doing this, and yeah, I'm not there. You know, like I'm sure there's something like that.
And yes, grand scheme, everyone likes to talk about spring training, doesn't matter. But all the things we're talking about with pitchers is in these pitches they're trying to develop. Even Skeens is like, this is the time you throw that stuff, right? Like you've been tinkering with it all off season. You think you've got it at least enough down to try it in games or game situations. Well, this is the time to do that and experiment a little. And that's the stuff that I like to see with Jones, with Chandler, when we get to see Skeens, is how are those new pitches? What do they look like?
Bruce here says, does Peggy have a shot at being the shortstop? Not convinced that IKF is the answer. I'm not either. We've talked about this, old topic. But now, you know, we're supposedly watching them play. I mean, Peggy he's gotten into 2 games. He's gotten 3 at-bats. He's not gotten any hits or drawn any walks or done anything. Or nothing. So I don't know what to tell you about that. I mean, like, they haven't given him a lot of opportunity. Ever. I think he was up like for 42 games last year and got like 10 at-bats. You know, like, that's pretty crazy. Like, that's not how you treat a prospect that you actually think is going to make it. So,
yeah,
I don't know what they're doing.
We've kind of seen this before where I guess you could just go back to the whole actions speak louder than words type thing, which is just pay attention to how much usage they're getting. How many at bats are they getting? When are they getting them? You can kind of tell when guys aren't as much at the plan. They're telling you without telling you.
I mean, in a way, because like when you give guys light at bat work early on, sometimes you can be saying like, yeah, you're good. We know we don't need to see you. You know, like I'm talking about a guy like, well, like what Tommy Pham only has 5 at bats right now. So they're basically saying, all right, we don't need to see you. We know what's going to happen to you. Kutch was just talking the other day. I only need like 10 at bats to get ready for the
right.
You know what I mean?
Which I find insane, but okay.
Right, but like let's just say that's what's being said, right? So you know, Alika Williams is like one of the at bat leaders right now, Jim. You know, like it doesn't really matter. Like they're filling half games with like people that aren't going to make the team. So I guess it's like early to be worried about that. But for Peguero to have a chance to win shortstop, to me, I got to see him do something to make me want to consider it, and I've got to see the team let him do it.
Yeah, he has to have an opportunity, and I'd got to be honest with you. I just don't see. They're rolling with IKF.
I'm sure they are. to at least begin the season, Jim.
Yes.
But I do think like there's room for him to get surpassed if a player would step up. I honestly think if a player that's currently like in the roster conversation is going to take that position from IKF, I think they'd like it to be Nick Gonzalez. And I don't think he's got the range, but I do think that he's got the defensive chops to field the position competently. And his arm's strong enough. He can play third base. But I just don't think you're going to be getting like deep hole throws from him. He doesn't have the greatest range. I trust that he can do it, though. He's worked with Jack Wilson a long time. So I'm okay with him as an alternative if you're just trying to like work offense into a position. That's ultimately, to me, what's going to be the frustration point for people. If IKF like hits like he did early in Toronto last year, most fans are going to be okay with this. If he doesn't, most fans are going to be irate by like May.
Yeah, because
if they aren't already.
Well, if he's not hitting, he's going to make some errors at shortstop. So if he's not hitting, then you could see fans turning on him pretty quickly. They don't, we all know every year somebody seems to be the pinata of takes on the pinata hate.
Here it is, though. 7 million reasons why IKF. Here's what we Pirates fans do to everybody that they actually pay any money to. We immediately turn them into a reason why they're playing. Like, the only reason Hayes is playing is because he's getting, $8 million this year, right? The only reason I can... Yeah. They paid them because they think they're going to help, right? Like, so you're going to try when you pay guys. I mean, like, I don't really understand the frustration about how much he's paid. We know that this team doesn't pay enough, so they finally eat somebody's contract like we've been begging them to do. They eat the contract of a real Major League Baseball player, and we're pissed.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, because we view $7 million as $15 million, right? Here in Pittsburgh. But the reality is IKF is a valuable guy for a team. It's just
for a team that can afford to have him on their bench. Yes, he is.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Right.
We have basically done what we do in Pittsburgh. We take a guy that probably should be a bench guy at this point, and we bring him in, and basically the reason he signs here is not for money and not because he's willing to take less money, although that factors in. It's because we're willing to give him an opportunity that no one else is, because it doesn't matter to us that no one else saw you as a starter. You're still probably a good option here. You know what I mean? Like,
sure,
that's what they try to do. And
yeah.
I think it's going to backfire on them. I have felt it would all year. I don't like their backup at the position. I don't like their preparedness to fill the position. I'm grasping at straws to fill it myself by throwing Triolo and Gonzalez at
it. Yeah, it's a very strange position they've put themselves in at short. All I can say is you better hope he hits a little and he makes the routine plays, because if either of those things aren't happening, that's going to get fans are going to revolt against that, and they don't have a plan B for it.
These are words, my friend. You know what we got to do? We got to take another quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about some more players. Like, why have we barely seen Billy Cook? I don't even know what's going on there.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. the new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Jim, I've hung in for, 40 minutes? I think I can make it till the end here.
You're doing good, man. The flu's not easy, so I appreciate you battling through this one, grinding it out.
Yeah, you want me to drop back and switch?
Yeah, Jordan flu game. Here we go.
Yeah. So Billy Cook, I was expecting to see a little bit more of him, especially with the Horwitz injury. I thought we'd see a little bit more of the Billy Cook at first base treatment. He's only gotten 3 at-bats. He's been in 3 games. He's walked in 2 of those 3 at-bats and struck out in the other. So showing them right away, he'll get on base, right? That's what he wants to do. But not the opportunity I thought we were going to get. Jim, are we just not going to see any of these kids, really? It's starting to really feel like we're not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're sitting here. It's late February. Season starts in what, 28 days or something like that?
Yeah. I'm doing the math now, and I'm looking at like what's here, and the Adam Frazier edition, the Tommy Pham, and we still have that specter of some other move out there they're supposed to make. Somebody in the chat earlier asked about Verdugo. I mean, that's still hanging out there for some reason. The Pirates were definitely interested at one point. I'd imagine they've got their price out there, and he's either going to be desperate enough to take it at some point or he's not. And they could trade for somebody yet. It becomes less likely to me by the day. I think it's weird to wait until the season is close. I don't know why you would do that. That I don't think other teams like to do that. You like to get that camaraderie crap out of the way, like in spring training.
Sure.
I can see it happening, like if some coconuts shake loose from the trees because the hurricane blows through. But I think that's asking a lot.
Gary, to go back to your original question / point is, I think we are seeing already, and we'll see how the next couple weeks play out, but I think we are seeing already that maybe some of those opportunities we thought for guys aren't there like we had thought or hoped that they would be, because there's not a lot of time. There just isn't. You're in 3 weeks you're pretty much finalizing what you're doing, are you not? Other than maybe like a roster spot here or there. Other than that, you got 3 weeks. It doesn't seem like you're going to see a lot of getting the kids opportunities. They're going to rely on some veterans, whether that's good or not. I don't love it.
Well, a kid who's not going to get an opportunity, but he has taken advantage of every chance he's gotten to showcase himself so far, is our buddy Connor Griffin. He has looked every bit the part as the number 1 pick this year in camp. Very impressive, athletic, love his swing. I mean, got his first hit out of the way. What do you want to say about him, man? I mean, he's really, really looked great.
Well, the first thing that jumps off the screen at you is just like, he is a tank, like a full grown man. Like 18-year-olds are not supposed to look like that yet. He's so physically gifted that it's hard to imagine him being at this level this quickly. The only thing I would caution people about is like, he's still like a baby, right? Like yes, it all looks fantastic, but he's 18, man. It's gonna take a little bit of time. And I've seen some things on Twitter that people should absolutely know better than to be suggesting. Is he gonna be up next year? Like, whoa! Like, Ken Griffey Jr. started when he was 19 years old. That's like once in a
Juan Soto.
Yeah, I mean, like, come on now, like, give the kid a chance to get his feet wet a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it'll pay off.
Motor through the minors, though. I think you're looking at probably a level and a half a year is a good pace to probably expect from him. So that means Greensboro by the end of this year, Altoona by the end of next year, Indy / maybe Cup of Coffee by the end of the year after that, if everything goes gracefully, smoothly, and awesomely.
Right. Like, and that would be like ideal, right? Like you'd sign up for that, like right now, like great.
Yeah,
But like,
that's a dream if it goes like that.
yeah, so but like the time that this is gonna take, and oh, by the way, they should with him. So you just, relax, everybody. Just relax. He's not, I hate to say, Henry Davis at 20 some years old college kid
right.
coming out. We've even seen them guys struggle. So just remember that. He's
Just
a
remember, the
top.
faster he moves, the deeper he gets into a system where he is by far the youngest kid on the roster. And that matters as far as just experience goes. Just even understanding the routine of the day-to-day, how to not blow half of your available energy in, the first 4 weeks of a season. That stuff
Right.
needs taught to kids, and it doesn't come from coaches most of the time.
Yeah, and that's what I talk about, like getting your bearings, right? Like getting your feet wet a little bit. Like just the environment is going to take some time to get used to.
Yeah.
Like learning how to be a professional athlete, ball player. Like these are all new things to him. I'm sure he'll do fine and do well. He's mature beyond his years. But that doesn't mean like you just fast forward past all of it.
Right. He's got to get head on his
So
shoulders too, man. We'll see how it
yeah,
goes.
he does. But hey,
So
he's exciting as hell. I will say that.
let's add another one into this discussion, Jim. Somebody that the Pirates desperately need to turn around. Jack Sawinski, hitting guys from both sides of the plate. He's faced lefties, he's faced righties. We just got a question about Jack from Miles here. So what are our thoughts on Jack? Jack is, to me, looks like he's not second guessing himself nearly as much at the plate. I've only gotten to see a few at bats. I'm looking at results from spring. I can say that he is hitting the ball with authority, though. And the people that are down there have told me that it's coming off his bat as good as it did a couple years ago. And he seems to be getting better plate coverage on the outside stuff.
Well, it's a good start. I mean, it's what you want to see. His issue has been the consistency. We'll see how that goes. I think, like, the more I think about Jack Sawinski, and I think about Jack Sawinski more than any healthy person should, but Jack is funny because Jack can work the count. But when Jack gets behind in the count, he gets himself in trouble more than even most hitters do.
Right.
Like everybody gets in trouble when they're behind in the count. But as Jack's doing it, because of some of the things with him, it really, really, really hurts him. And then he gets stuck in that mode.
Well,
And
the book on him had become that he was going to take a pitch.
Right.
And everybody threw him a pitch that he just took.
Yeah.
And he could never break out of it.
Yeah.
And they killed him last year entirely, more than anything else.
So, there's a fine line between being aggressive and over aggressive or passive, but like, my hope is that you're just going to see him, no matter the count, if it's a good pitch, swing at it. Put your best swing on it, hit it hard. Don't worry about the results in the sense of it's a line drive out, so be it. But like, get back to the point where you're not always in defense mode. Attack some. That's what I'd love to see.
So what about the king of the NRIs, DJ Stewart? Hey, a hole opened up with Horwitz, right? And he can play outfield and first base. We just said that was reason enough to consider Gorski. It's reason enough to consider this NRI as well then, right? And he's knocking the ball all over the place, hitting doubles and, home runs. I think the home run I saw was very wind dated, but the doubles weren't, and, that probably was a double even if it wasn't a home run. So that said, he either does that or he strikes out. Doesn't that sound familiar? So, and
yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, if any of these guys have good springs, it'll be interesting to see if they take it seriously enough to put them on the roster. And we don't know what's going on with Horwitz, right?
But Horwitz is starting to swing two-handed now, so already.
But I'm saying, like, time-wise, like
I'm saying if he's already swinging two-handed, good chance he's on schedule at least, right? So it's not like it's going to turn into May unless he has a big setback or something.
Yeah.
People don't want to hear how good Ji-Hwan Bae has looked at the plate so far because he's Ji-Hwan Bae, so I'm just not going to say anything. The last player I really wanted to make sure we touched on was Henry Davis. I think we may have a butterfly on our hands, my friend. I think the metamorphosis may have taken place this offseason. He looks different, and I don't mean physically. He just looks different. Doesn't look like he's pressing. Doesn't look like he's grinding the bat into a toothpick. Doesn't look like he's stressed about every pitch. Looks like he's patient on the breaking stuff and attacking the fastballs, taking it the other way. Everything that you've always hoped he would start doing. And the defense looks good. I think Henry Davis is making a case for making the opening day roster as the backup / co-starting catcher.
Well, that would be awesome. It's funny when you hear a little bit about Henry and Jack. They've alluded to the confidence thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, like, people, I think, don't realize, even professional ball players. When it goes south and your confidence gets shaken, you need to regain that and then prove you belong. And both of them have struggled in that regard. So Henry, to me, is one of the biggest keys this year out of everything. He really is.
And Endy, they seem to be slow walking a little bit, right? It feels like he's they're being really, really careful with him. And it feels like since he returned last year and played some minor league games, I guess I was kind of hoping that they would let him just be shot out of a cannon this spring a little bit. Let him go. Just let him do his thing. I figure like rehab should be over now at this point for him, for the most part.
Yeah, to me, it's becoming more and more apparent that he's destined to start the year in AAA.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah. They're just going to let him get totally back in the flow. Hopefully he's hitting the ball, and then we'll go from there. And truthfully, they can afford it with their catching situation being a little bit more stable this year. So I don't have a problem with it. I think it's the right move for Endy.
Yeah. Nick York has looked, I mean, he's getting on base. He's taking his walks. That's what he and Billy Cook both brought to the table. A lot less swing and miss, and the Pirates seemed to want that last year, right? So
yeah,
maybe you'll think that you should see them a little bit more often. Nick Solak has been interesting. I don't think he has a real chance to make this team, but he's really been hitting the ball hard. That's cool. Malcolm Nunez has looked a little bit weird. They've tried playing him at first base. I haven't liked it very much. I don't think he's got much of a shot. Anybody else that stood out to you, Jim, or anybody that said anything that was super interesting to you?
Let's talk about Cabrian Hayes just real quick.
Yeah.
Because at least what we are seeing with, and again, it could mean nothing. It's the beginning of spring training, but whether it's been Henry, Jack, Cabrian, all these players that we are hoping that they can find something again, whether be it just health or performance wise in general. Cabrian's looked pretty good. That's another big thing that, like, I don't think you can understate the fact that he looks like he's healthy and he's hitting the baseball. So early on, very positive.
My problem with Hayes is I never trust his swing changes because I've seen him do it before, and then when he actually gets into the regular season, he just seems to revert. Now maybe that's like something that has been squashed along with his new like training regimen, and he'll understand that he can't really be changing his swing because he needs to be consistent with everything he does, you know. If that's the case, then yeah, again, much like with Davis and Jack, and you just kind of hope those trends continue, because if some of these guys that we wrote off as complete busts, or we were only ever going to get this, or blah blah blah, start to actually perform, this whole thing looks a hell of a lot better. I would love nothing more than to come on the air sometime in September and say, I was wrong. Boy, was was Ben Sherrington ever right? They had plenty of whatever it is we thought they didn't have anything of.
For sure. And these guys we're mentioning, as far as hitting goes, the spring training matters and means a little bit more, just because you have to start seeing it, and it does build their confidence up, whether it matters or not. But at least they're hitting, and they can build off that, which none of them have been able to do.
Right.
So whether it's health or otherwise.
Yeah, that's kind of the trouble there. And then again, like, there's some monkey wrenches that I just don't understand. I still don't understand the Adam Frazier signing. I don't quite get the fit. When he has made contact this spring, you can just tell that the ball just doesn't have any locomotion behind it. If you want to know what scares me a heck of a lot more than that, I see even less from IKF. I feel like he looks like he's hitting with a banana bat. I mean, he looks like he's got that old, long, straight yellow bat, no duct tape around the end to give it any weight or nothing, and everything he hit is just, he might as well be swinging a pole cue, bro.
Yeah, it's funny too, because like we don't. Some guys are slow starters. And then they could hit well in spring and start slow in the regular season. So it's hard to make a lot of sense out of it. But IKF is somebody that he doesn't have to hit a ton, but like do something that at least, and where do we think he's going to bat, by the way?
I bet they lead him off.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
So, because the options, unless it's back to Kutch.
Well, you're discounting that G1 Bay is going to make it too. So I'm just
fan favorite G1 Bay. No, but I mean, like, I do think IKF is probably going to bat leadoff.
Yeah, I mean, listen, all I can say is we have said pretty consistently all off season, on paper, we don't see it offensively. And we've tried to be really generous. I think we even did a couple shows that were basically what if shows, where we basically said, okay, best case scenario here for these guys is this. And even then we kind of felt like it would come up short, right? I guess as I'm looking at the team, I still feel that same way. I would love to be proven wrong. It just doesn't feel like I'm going to be. So I feel like they have to do something else, man. And the sad thing is, I don't really see any transformative type players out there. I don't see any one move that takes this from a fringe 500 / squeak into the playoff team into a for sure division winner. I just don't think there's one move out there that does that. And to me, that means just sit back and watch baseball.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this season plays out, because if they're getting the pitching that we think that they can get, how long will they sit there and let it die on the vine because they're just not scoring any runs? I don't know. I think you're going to see them be in a lot of ball games this year, but can they score enough runs to win more of them, and can they hold on to those leads? On the back end, I think that's what the season's going to come down to.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch. We're going to watch it whether it's good or bad. That's because that's kind of crazy people we are, Jim. So
Yeah,
it is what it is.
We love baseball and we love pain. So yeah.
And if you get a chance, people, I will say two prospects that nobody's been talking about, but I think kind of have had pretty good camps so far. Jack Brannigan, third baseman on the way. I love his bat. I really do. I think he's got a lot of power potential in there. I'd really like to see him take a jump this year. And Xiangxie Sheng has actually looked pretty good defensively, better than I remember seeing. Looks like he's really learned some new tricks. Maybe he could actually handle shortstop. And he's already on the 40-man, even though he didn't get himself out of Double-A last year. So we'll see how that plays out. But keep an eye on him, because we keep talking about having no shortstop options. And I don't think it's fair to jump all the way to Griffin.
Yeah, and the thing about it is as this spring plays out, we get to start. I mean, we're close to being able to give our predictions on the season, 40-man predictions, final roster. So the next couple weeks are going to be at least interesting from that standpoint. So we'll see. We're getting close now, though, Gary.
Yeah. One question here from DJRHH something. Is Cheng even as good as Alika? Well, he can hit for power a hell of a lot better than Alika. I can say that. He does have more pop than Alika. He's not nearly the glove that Alika is, but nobody that you're going to see on the 26-man this entire year is. So
No.
Yeah, I don't really know what else to add to that, but backhanded compliment to Alika, I'll take. I like it.
I mean,
Jim,
let's wrap it up like this, Gary. Right now, you have to say, who's the backup shortstop right now for the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Yeah, Leo Peguero, for sure. I mean, that he's got to be it. And I don't think he's going to be during the season, but I think he's like if IKF were to break his leg, Peguero's the guy that comes up to fill that role, right? I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Probably, but that gives you an indication of just how much they need IKF to be healthy, and at least be able to hold the position.
I can't even 100%. I can't even 100% say that Jared Triolo is going to get that guaranteed spot that we kept saying he was going to get. Because, Nick York could take that from him, or Billy Cook could take that from him, I would think. Probably Nick York has a better shot of doing that, and he can cover most of the same infield spots that Triolo could. So you could see them making a compromise for offense there. I mean,
I
there
think
are
that-
some battles that are interesting, but not a lot. Catcher's the
No.
one that I think we'll see what they do with Endy and Henry here. I'm just saying early on, it looks like Henry to me.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting,
Yeah,
though.
The Triola things is also another one where it's like, I think they're gonna, in my opinion, I think he'll be there. He'll be on the roster. But if they get desperate enough for offense and he's not hitting and he's having to play, that's when things may change.
Why is there an Alika groundswell going on in my live chat? I don't understand what is going on here, people. I got this dude talking about IKF can't hit or play good D. Why not Alika? Well, Alika isn't on the 40 man and has never hit ever. So I mean, like, he hit for Tampa Bay in the minor leagues in 2023. That's why he got traded.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, which is essentially why he got here.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to waste a lot of time talking about Alika Williams. He's not gonna fill your fever dream. If that's your particular kink, find a new one, because that's not gonna happen here.
It's IKF or bust.
Yeah, sadly.
Hate to say it.
All right, Jim, let's toss it off to Ben and say goodbye, and thanks for bearing with me. Actually, you know what we should do too one more time? I'll let you see the video one more time.
Good job on the polar plunge. Good job.
Let's go Bucs!
Yeah, buddy.